Welcome back, everyone, to the finals of Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas. It's been a long, epic week, and now we are coming down to the final match between Muzzy and lnguagehacker, where the winner gets some extra points and put themselves really good position to be in Division A going into the second phase of Grandmaster season. The bans are in, TJ. Both priests have been banned. Any thoughts on this as we go into our final best of five here?
Definitely makes sense. Muzzy has Rogue, which I think could be a little bit better positioned against the, say, like Big Warrior and Galakron Warlock, unlike Eddie's lineup, because it can be aggressive. Blackjack Stunner can completely ruin Big Warrior's day, as well as Sap and, just a fast start. And also against Galakron Rogue, it's got a little bit more of an aggressive start, so it can be, or Galakron Warlock, excuse me. So it'd be faster. So I don't think that you need to ban Big Warrior out of the series, and Priest just seems like the highest power level deck across the board, the one that's the least likely to be exploited. And so I agree with that on both sides. And just want to point out that this was my predicted final, Dan, even though it didn't pan out in the way that I expected it to, with Muzzy getting a free win in the semifinals. I was still correct. So I pat myself on the back for that one.
You are correct very often, TJ. I encourage you to have more confidence in yourself, as a lot of things that you say tend to come true. Even when you're like starting to say, this is the only way they can win is this, and it tends to happen a lot of the time. And I'm really excited to see if lnguagehacker's lineup, his unusual lineup of Big Warrior, Galakron Warlock, his small tweaks to Druid and Priest can get him over the hump. Muzzy's going to start things off with his Survival Guardian Animal Druid. And, we've seen this deck perform very well, but like we talked about before, the techs in the deck for lnguagehacker are more towards Mage with Living Dragon Breath. Muzzy has no such thing. He's just kind of playing the normal good list cards. And then lnguagehacker, he's going to be going to his Big Warrior, which is exactly the matchup that he's looking for anyways.
Yep. Definitely can target Druid in this matchup from Muzzy, even though it's a little bit more consistent than Eddie's version. And his other decks might be a little bit better positioned to take wins against lnguagehacker's other decks. I still think that this Big Warrior can consistently take wins against Druid, and that's going to be our first match of the day. We talked about this deck, kind of at length, looking to Dimensional Ripper and Commencement out some of those big minions in the deck, like Rattlegore, like the Deathwing, Grom. There's the super high roll potential of Dimensional Ripper into Archmage Vargoth, which then casts 2 more Dimensional Rippers, which can fill up your board with 4 giant minions and 2 Archmage Vargoths. And get a little bit crazy, get a little bit hectic. Deck's fun though, fun to play, fun to watch.
It's very fun to play, and it's just got some big stuff, right? It's only fitting that a ramp druid that likes to play big stuff sometimes dies to even bigger stuff, which is just beautiful in its own right, given that Warrior hasn't really had too many good opportunities to play this kind of style in quite some time. There used to be a Recruit Warrior back in the day that people played, but outside of that, Warrior has always kind of been into 2 different buckets, which is like an aggressive tempo-based option that either used like full-on aggression in the beginning, like Pirates, or they would play like these big battle rage decks that even still exist today. And then the other side of it was like a full defensive control warrior. And so I'm looking forward to seeing it. Muzzy starts things off with a nature study and finds just another Iron Bark, so none of the ramp that he needs to get this thing going. Oh, geez. Just dead turns. And lnguagehacker really happy. He's like, all right, no overgrowth, no wild growth, no ramp. Seems good.
Yeah, thumbs up. And lnguagehacker's getting his own form of ramp with Armor Up and Pass. It's much less effective ramp. And in fact, Muzzy's just completely negating.
1 mana crystal more next turn. He's ramping.
Yeah, ramping. Ooh, now he's ramping his cards. He could play Shield Block and ramp his cards. Ooh, Archmage Vargoth? So Archmage Vargoth on 5 with coin in hand can potentially set you up for commencement, but you could also just cast the coin, which is brutal.
Jeez.
But sometimes you can try and stick it on 6 if you're playing against a deck that doesn't deal with it very well, and then play commencement on 7 and get the double commencement value from Archmage Vargoth.
Yeah, I think that Teacher's Pet here makes sense just to get board presence and stickiness. I think you might be slightly concerned by playing cards like Teacher's Pet that you're giving your opponent actionable cards to use, right? Like Slam and Shield Slam and Sword and Board, like all these cards become active now, and it's clear that Language Hacker is just kind of holding reactive cards. But at the same time, if you never play it, your opponent's just going to continue to get exactly what they want, which is time. And the pace of play, which is Muzzy's playing a straightforward curve from 1 to 5 mana crystals, is not the kind of winning strategy that Druid wants. If Druid plays straight up with no ramp, it's a mediocre deck. Arguably like a subpar deck. Like it has cool like Kael'thas turns, but without ramp, it really can't capitalize on these really powerful turns unless you have Kael'thas. So you know, right now it's just going a little too slowly here for Muzzy.
Yeah, your powerful turns are still powerful, but you gave your opponent so much time to be able to assemble their powerful turns as well. And Big Warrior is also a deck that has some pretty powerful turns. So it's not something that you want to have to rely on. It's just playing the deck straight up. Sometimes you need to. And I mean, Muzzy does have those some big turns coming up, but are they big enough? That's going to be the question. Can go off with Kael'thas here and play out an Overflow. He's going right into 7 mana, so that Overflow could pick up a Guardian Animals, which then he could play next turn. And if he picks up, he wouldn't have he could have find a Lightning Bloom and then play the Guardian Animals this turn, but he'd be so all in on his turn and playing very heavily into Brawl, not being able to attack his minions like Twilight Runners into anything to draw cards and get immediate effect out of it. I don't know it's worth going that all in on Kael'thas this early on into the game, because you would have a dead turn the following turn and give Language Hacker complete authority over the game in order to have a chance at drawing out your Guardian Animal. So I like this play a little bit better. Puts still something that's threatening in play. And if Muzzy goes off with Kael'thas next turn and finds Survival of the Fittest with Overflow, and can play that in a single turn, this Wind Fury Gidra could put on a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I like that play too, and you know, I think that it's just annoying enough for, like you were talking about, Language Hacker has to clear. He does find the Reaper Scythe, which is nice, but you know, I think Language Hacker also doesn't feel that threatened by it at the moment. So Commencement finds Death Wing Mad Aspect. That is hard to deal with. That's a big boy.
Yeah. Language Hacker could have gone like Reaper Scythe, double Sword and Board to clear up the board, but this is about as small of a Druid board as you can expect. So you might as well get your big minion out before that happens, then maybe try and use the big removal tools you have in your hand to clean up. But looking for cheap spells, Guardian Animals, Survival of the Fittest. Judging by Muzzy's face, he picked up a bunch of garbage. Okay, Overflow again.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if he can find cheap spells one more time and then Survival of the Fittest. Okay. Wow. Wow, no Brawl.
And the time run low.
Can you go one further beyond the Survival? Oh, jeez.
Whoo! Here, take 9.
Oh, I like it. Well, this doesn't stop against ramming speed.
No, and it's actually weaker to Brawl.
Yeah. So Reaper Scythe. I believe ramming speed will guarantee the clear.
Yep. And he only has to take 2.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Edge Reinforcement's actually didn't work out the way Muzzy, I think, was hoping for.
Now he just plays one minion, which he knows is vulnerable to Blade Storm in the case of Twilight Runner or Coerce in the form of anything else that doesn't have stealth. So, gonna play the Twilight Runner because there's only one of that can get Language Hacker the kill on this thing. But that was a big turn for not much gain for Muzzy. He did, however, draw through much of his deck. But unfortunately, you know, that may not be as impactful as he thinks it is if he can't get tempo onto the board. He needs to find a way to stick a board full of minions so that the survival of the fittest can end the game.
Hey, TJ, attacked a stealth minion.
Wait, what? It doesn't have to follow the normal minion rules?
It says random enemy.
But there's been cards in the past that have, say, attack a random enemy that have to follow normal minion rules.
So I wasn't entirely sure on it because I've seen also because based off your explanation,
I've never seen it attack a minion in stealth.
That means Troublemaker's minions can't attack. They have to attack taunts, which is definitely not the case. I've seen them really ignore taunts before, so I wasn't sure if that was the case. I kind of like want to take his word for it, but I guess we learned an interaction together. There you go.
Yeah, I've never seen it attack stealth. Obviously, I've seen it not attack taunts. Yeah. Learn something new every day. I guess that is consistent with other minions that have similar effects.
I mean, it's the same kind of text that's on like Deadly Shot, for example. Deadly Shot can totally hit a stealth minion as well. It just says random enemy, but
yeah, it's random enemy is a little different.
What? Oh, jeez! Muzzy drew 4 portals. I mean, now he can survival the fittest and have a really big board and force Language Hacker to produce the brawl. Otherwise, he will sink.
Does he go all in with double Anubisoth as well?
Maybe one, just one.
Maybe one, yeah. But if you play one
left,
if you play one, the other one is stranded without the minions. If his next turn is Exotic Mount Seller. He could go Anubisoth plus Leg Thresher.
Run out of minions. I think that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, if Brawl comes out here, he'd go like Anubisoth plus Leg Thresher, and then if that gets dealt with, then you follow up with like Exotic Mount Seller, because that's probably like the weaker turn, considering the minions aren't buffed by Survival of the Fittest that are spawned from Exotic Mount Seller, even though the Mount Seller itself is. Ooh, okay. The other thing I was thinking was a trade-in with the Kargath, and then Dimensional Ripper to try and get both Kargath primes. But that would only clear off 2 minions from the board. There'd still be too much power, even though you'd gain 20 armor, and it's not guaranteed or anywhere near guaranteed. So he's just going to go for Archmage Vargoth, and you know, maybe he gets a ramming speed and can clear off the last minion. Coerce. Ooh, okay.
Okay.
At least it's an enemy minion.
Right. It could have gone a lot worse for Language Hacker if it targeted Archmage Vargoth himself.
Yep.
Muzzy has the Exotic Mount Seller ready to go. This is a list that it seems like him and Saiyan really favor, and just that group having Exotic Mount Sellers, which is a hybrid of the Spell Druid that we used to see with the Kael'thas, but has now placed Survival of the Fittest. And you don't really see the Exotic Mount Sellers too often because they don't really inherently have a ton of synergy with the Survival of the Fittest, because you have to have the minions on board first. Yeah. Imagine if Survival of the Fittest gave every minion you ever played +4/+4, then the Max Center would just be way too powerful in this deck. But as a result, it's much more of an optional tech card to help influence the mirror, I think.
All right, so the decision here is you slam and rip the Brawl, or you Dimensional Ripper and rip the Kargath Prime to keep you alive. Whew. Looking at the minions that are remaining in his deck, there's Deathwing, Mad Aspect, Rattlegore, the second Troublemaker, and the Kargath Prime. So it's a 1 in 4. Whereas he has 14 cards left in his deck. And that's... Is he alive? There's 20. So. Yep, he's at 24. But now the Dimensional Ripper out has been... I mean, it wasn't an out, right? It didn't win him a game, it just bought him another turn. So I like the dig for the Brawl there, I guess.
Yeah, I think the Brawl was his best chance, and I think Muzzy now knows 100% there's no Brawl. In fact, I'm not even sure if Muzzy's incentivized to develop that much onto the board here. I'd be okay with him either slightly extending, like playing a Twilight Runner and that's it, because I don't think he really needs card draw, or the other option would be to simply not play anything at all. Either of those I think are okay.
I think you want to play something to interrupt Blade Storm plus Sword and board. Because that'd be clean, but I guess he's not going to play anything. So Language Hacker has a Blade Storm out here. Still has a Blade Storm out here. There it is.
Oh, all right. Sword and board, 12 damage remaining on both.
Yep.
And perhaps a argument of why Twilight Runner might be important because of things like that.
Yeah, because the Twilight Runner
Storm.
is... Oh no, Twilight Runner wouldn't protect it against it because it's actually 12 health. He could have played just
he
could have just played an exotic Mount Seller though. Like he could have just not had any minions, played an exotic Mount Seller. Actually, just playing an exotic Mount Seller that turn, knowing that there's no Brawl in hand.
It was a line.
Yeah. Maybe not guaranteed lethal, but you have lethal through Brawl. You have lethal through just Blade Storm. He would have to have exactly Brawl and Blade Storm.
Muzzy really debating how far he wants to extend onto it. Yep. But yeah, he still needs the Brawl. Doesn't have it. And I think that is it here for Language Hacker. Dimensional Ripper with no broom, animated broomstick. Also worth noting, even if he had a broomstick, he's probably dead.
Yeah. Imagine if broomstick wasn't a battle cry and was a like a permanent effect on the board, just gave all your minions rush permanently. That plus Dimensional Ripper could completely clear everything with Rattlegore. There's a die and then come back, rush again with the 8 attack, rush again with the 7 attack, repeat until board's clear. Fortunately not the case, but yeah, that was just too much stuff from Muzzy for Language Hacker to handle. That was crazy amount of just raw stats played onto the board for Muzzy that game.
Totally. And so now you get to see why the double survival of the fittest is still, even with a deck designed to counter it, sometimes just too hard to beat because you're just playing, I like to call it battlegrounds at that point. You're just playing giant minions with crazy stats and like, how did a board of like 16 20s hit the board, go up against me, and I only have like a deal 5 damage to a minion card?
Yeah.
It starts to get really out of control. Either way, I think what we have to highlight here is not the fact that Muzzy won, but the fact that he won with his Druid, which was the main deck that I think Language Hacker was targeting. And now with Secret Rogue remaining with his Mage deck as well, he's going to have to find another way, he's going to have to find other matchups that he's good at besides against Druid. So this was looking good for Muzzy so far. Secret Rogue is our T-Mobile deck spotlight for today, by the way, featuring cards like Plagiarize and Secret Passage, Cult Neophyte, some of these new cards from Skullomance Academy. And we'll see if this deck can truly shine now that it is in the spotlight. Muzzy starts things off with a decent opening hand, but kind of needs a little bit to tie things together. Like a secret. That would be excellent, actually.
Okay. So Blackjack Stunner, crazy card in the matchup because it completely negates Commencement, which is a very heavy investment from the warrior to be able to get that out. It does technically give them an extra copy of a minion, but normally they can't spend like 9 mana or 10 mana in the case of Rattlegore to replay a minion that got Blackjack Stunnered. They're often not afforded that luxury, so having an extra copy of it really is pretty negatable. The Plagiarize, I don't want to say useless in this matchup because it can find some creative use, but a lot of times you can't predict when they're going to play like a big minion, and a big minion is really the only use for it. You could get maybe get a shield block from Plagiarize if you play it on 2, but that's about it. Muzzy really has to navigate this one wisely because there's so much removal in the deck, and there's very little threats for Muzzy that are in his deck. He's got 2 Questing Adventurers and 1 Edwin Van Cleef. Outside of that, everything else he's going to do is little stuff or stuff that's generated. And so he's got to protect the threats that he does have and try and find a lot of big threats to have longevity in the game.
Yeah, it's fair. It does seem that the big warrior stat-wise does well against almost all rogues, except for the really aggressive stealth and weapon rogue. It does seem like that is the area that big warrior struggles because it just can't keep up early game, unless it draws like sword and board and all these like different small pocket removal tools.
Yeah,
but statistically, it seems like it does just fine against the rogue. So good to know. Now Muzzy has like the option of starting to develop pretty aggressively. Like he can use the Questing Adventurer and start to play like the Secret to start building it up a little bit more here. The annoying thing is that his opponent's at like 4 armor, so he would be able to most likely shield slam anything that he plays anyways.
Ooh, he can't kill it.
Oh my
a tutu.
gosh.
He can't kill a tutu.
He drew 3 of his big minions as well, which is actually quite unfortunate. Oh, language hacker. He has coerce, so he's actually damaging the minion beforehand, so he can just play it without having a combo. That's actually a very nice spot.
He's trying to bait him
bad situation.
into thinking. Yeah, he's trying to bait him into thinking, oh no, I used Ramming Speed and it didn't kill the minion. Muzzy's way smarter than that, but Muzzy should know that that play is the only set up coerce. And he should make sure that he does go all in on the Questing Adventure, but put enough pressure to force it out.
That's right. Yeah, and I like that if he plays the Edwin here, he's forcing Coerce in a bad spot, where if he either deals with the Questing Adventure or he deals with the Edwin. Unless, of course, Language Hacker has Brawl, in which case Muzzy would be overextending into it, so... That's why I think the Draconic Lackey makes sense, because Muzzy's generating more threats to play. So I like the Draconic Lackey here. I think we stop playing cards and then jam Edwin.
Yep.
Wow, that Onyx.
Well, what? He could Plagiarize Edwin, because if he thinks that it's course... Oh, he's not going to play Edwin at all. Wait a second.
So he's playing around Brawl.
Okay.
Wait, is he playing around Brawl? Yeah, he's playing around Brawl because he want to play Edwin and that.
I guess.
He gets his own Coerce, though, which is
the last turn
great.
Was a super obvious Coerce setup. I don't know. I probably would have played the Edwin. I know I went up in that big spiel about protecting his threats, but I feel like that was protecting his threats. That was protecting his Edwin from what he knew was there. He didn't know Brawl was there, but based on Language Hacker's last turn, he should have been pretty confident that Coerce was there.
Yeah, now because of it, he's kind of missed a window where he could be smacking with Edwin. But he's still in a good spot, right? Like, for now, I think the the difficulty is about to ramp up even more here. Language Hacker now has started to unlock his other tier of power, which is the commencement and all these big 8-drops.
Yep. And he knows that there's a coerce in the hand.
What is this?
Whoa.
Archmage Antonitis?
Whoa.
All right. I mean, that's some reach. Double Wand Thief. I like it. So it doesn't look like he has anything to play to develop meaningfully, but he could invest into his next hand with the Wand Thieves and make a bunch of cheap spells for Antonitis. Pyroblast!
Pyroblast!
He's just going to
first
freeze
him out of
Mage!
the game!
What?
Wait, Brain Freeze seemed actually really good there.
Yeah, Brain Freeze to freeze like an individual minion.
Yeah.
I guess he's anticipating commencement, which means he has to go through it anyways the hard way.
Oh, he's got a commencement. Oh, that's the good one. Summons another.
Geez.
Oh, yeah, it does not get the end of turn effect when it's summoned from Archmage Vargoth because it's cast at the end of the turn.
Oh, no. And Muzzy doesn't have a secret. But he has Coerce, actually. Yeah, he's fine. He's totally fine, especially with this Vendetta pickup.
Yeah. But I think he wanted to Archmage it. He can still Archmage Antonitis. Archmage Antonitis, Backstab, Vendetta. He wouldn't get the damage from the Questing Adventurer, though, which I think is a big deal.
Oh no, I guess he'll have to settle for Pyroblast.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to settle for just ending the game with Pyroblast.
Yeah.
Polymorph!
What is happening?
What?
Pavel, are you watching this? I mean, this rogue deck plays hybrid mage cards, right? It's dual class.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the power of the rogue mage identity, is that they have a ton of options, and just like how Tempo Mage can generate random stuff.
This could go horribly wrong.
Oh yeah, if it doesn't attack the Edwin.
Oh, go
and
it went perfectly! It sniped him!
Archmage can give you 2 fireballs. Next turn you fireball, and then you pyroblast. I mean, oh wow. Okay. Ysera Unleashed is great against the deck if it can draw a bunch of stuff. I actually really wonder how that interaction works with Secret Passage. I will admit I have not seen that. But it gives him more threats. Language Hacker looks like he's in big trouble. Big warrior. Turns out the troublemaker was him all along.
Yeah. Language Hacker has very little healing in the deck, very little armor gain in the deck. This is the easiest double fireball of his life.
Yeah. He could alternatively set up a board to try and use that fireball, but it definitely looks like 2x fireball. And Language Hacker, like you said, has shield block. I think that's going to do it.
Yep.
You're in my school now. Job done.
Yeah, Language Hacker knows he's dead too. It's like, why would you do that unless you had some kind of damage card that was generated, and that's going to do it. So, Muzzy up 2-0.
I feel like we've seen that so often from that rogue deck, where it just consistently generates burn or ways to find burn. Bloodyface had the double pyroblast or double fireball in his matchup yesterday, which gave him a quick win with Eviscerates in hand. He was playing a different deck, but Wand Thief just in aggressive rogues decks or fast-paced rogue decks seems like just find burn so much of the time. So difficult to deal with too.
Definitely. So the burn that Rogue can generate like that, I mean, it has that half mage identity because you can get really powerful stuff. You can get like, I think like one time on ladder, someone played they played One Thief, got Evocation, and then Secret Passaged, and put all of those mage cards they got into their deck.
Oh!
And then they swapped and they played a bunch of burn, and then they came back and just drew like Frostbolts and drew like Brain Freeze. And I was like, what is happening? It just became a mage deck out of nowhere. There's some really wacky stuff that can happen, and we're not done with the wackiness quite yet. Mage is on deck. Muzzy with a 3 keep here. Violet Spellwing, Mana Cyclone, and the Mana Giant.
Yep.
Very confident that he can discount Mana Giant significantly, and that would be his win condition against Druid.
I like it. Now we're just looking for either Sorcerer's Apprentice to activate this Mana Cyclone, or some cheap spell damage minions or Primordial Studies in order to activate these cram sessions. So Muzzy's just like a couple cards away from having a very explosive start.
Yeah, it does tend to struggle a lot because, you know, the Mage deck does need some time to set up, which gives Druid time to set up, and if it comes down to it, there's only like a limited amount of like Ray of Frost and other kind of card generation shenanigans that that you can have before it starts to get really serious. Like Druid has like, you know, 20 damage on the board from a couple of minions, and if you're not ready for it or ready to counter push, you will die. So this does seem to be a tougher matchup for Mage at the moment.
Yeah.
What shall we hunt?
Especially with that kind of start from Language Hacker. Rips the 2 pieces of ramp, has perfect man to be able to overflow and not worry about his hand size.
True mastery takes dedication.
Raz Frost Whisper will prove to be slightly annoying, but not really. He gets to heal these minions up, and there's no spell damage minions, and Language Hacker can be pretty confident that there's not even any in the hand, or else he would have used them with the cram sessions that he just used to cycle.
Oh, come on. This is such an insane hand with the Kael'thas and the Survival of the Fittest and Guardian Animals. He does lack cheap spells, though, with it. He has only 1 cycle of the Kael'thas, Lightning Bloom, Ironbark, and then whatever else he wants to play there.
I guess his question is if you... Okay.
Yeah, I like playing it here because chances are you're not going to play it for 0 anytime soon because you're going to be playing like 0 mana Survival, 0 mana Guardian Animals,
yeah,
which means that Anubisat Defender is full cost. And if you do end up playing Guardian Animals, you're going to run into hand space issues. So I think this makes the most sense to me. What do you think, David?
Yeah, no, I agree. For exactly that reasoning. He wants to play all this stuff for free. And if he's just playing Guardian Animals next turn and not going for Kael'thas, then he would be playing the Anubisat Defender for the same stats anyway, so he might as well have it on the board turn sooner.
Well, Astromancer Solarian appears in the Primordial Studies, and Solarian Prime is a win condition that you can stack and maybe generate even more ways to play Solarian Prime through like Potion of Illusion and whatnot. But for now, the other synergy you're thinking about is Raz. It's on the board, which does damage to all enemies based on how much spell damage you have. I don't know if Azure Explorer is overkill at that point. Oh, chooses Thanos. It's actually secret option number 3. I wasn't even really considering it too much. What's he trying to do here, DJ?
He's trying to find Sorcerer's Apprentice, right? Astromancer Solarian, while it puts Solarian Prime in your deck, I think right now his hand screams, please give me a Sorcerer's Apprentice. Because that can unlock the Mana Cyclone, allow him to grease the board, have a big Tempo Swing, especially with Evocation. He can get Mountain Giant down, or Mana Giant, excuse me, down in the same turn. And if he wants to have full like the most potential power, the most consistent way to bail him out of the game would be that big swing turn with Sorcerer's Apprentice, as opposed to the crapshoot of, hey, will Solarian Prime clear the board and kill my opponent with 3 Power Blasts? But he's got a tough road. He needs it right now. Nope.
Well, I mean, you have stall.
Sure.
You have 2 Ray of Frost cards. What can we... Okay, so if we know we're gonna play Ray of Frost, what else do we do? Wand Thief? Conjurer's Calling would reduce the stats on average, but also it's good with his Mana Giant. Okay, Brain Freeze, and then you can Ray of Frost the other one? Or do you want to Ray of Frost? Maybe you're okay taking the 9 here.
Or just killing the speaker, yeah. So that way, Overflow, if it were to come out here, wouldn't just completely negate your ability to ever remove Speaker Gidra from the board. Ooh.
Strength in Numbers is actually a reasonable pick sometimes in this deck because you just have big stuff.
Yeah, if there's a miracle and Muzzy manages to come back, if you pull out your Sarah Unleash, you don't get the effect from it.
That's true.
Which is a pretty big downside of the card in this deck, but if you think that all you need is a chain of big minions, then yeah. No, there's Spiral for this. These minions are massive.
It's just starting to get way out of control. It's kind of what we're talking about, right? It's like at one point you could freeze all you want, but like you got to do something. You can't just freeze and then think you're gonna win off of burn. This isn't freeze mage.
Yeah.
Is it cold in here? Or is it just me?
Sorcerer's Apprentice are just so far down. Still finding more freeze, but unfortunately, each passing turn that he doesn't find the Sorcerer's Apprentice is turns that he has to expend these spells that he was saving for Sorcerer's Apprentice. That's fodder that he could have used to claw his way back to the game.
Jesus. It's like, what? He could create 2 more elementals and still wouldn't be able to get through Gale.
Yeah.
He would have to play 6 more spells. And he can't even deal with 1 minion on the board. Oh, there it is, the Living Tracker. Okay, that was a game of Hearthstone.
Oh man. Deadpan language hacker. Yep, just normal Druid things.
I mean, he has to beat this deck 2 more times. And he used his best deck to do it. I think the big warrior can also beat the mage pretty convincingly because the same exact problems, right? Like you summon 2 Deathwings, and you can't really deal with it unless you have the exact generated cards to remove it. But against Warlock, it does feel like Mage is a lot better to deal with it because they can generate burn. Galakron Warlock likes to yo-yo, and so it's really hard to play around a range of random spells as a Warlock. So it's pretty much at that point, it's in Language Hacker's hands to be the big playmaker. So I do expect this matchup to be going towards Warrior side, but that Warlock deck, if we can get to it, will be one of the bigger question marks, which I think leans more towards the Mage. But we'll see. I mean, it kind of really depends on the pilot and who you're really talking to. Either way, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It's going to game number 4 here. Language Hacker really deep in the tank of thinking about how he wants to go about his mulligan here. Is this a 4 key potentially?
So
it is.
Wow. Okay. I was thinking about the Brawl, but if you're just trying to bridge the gap to Commencement and Dimensional Ripper, Brawl is that way. But Athletic Studies, great card to have. just to try and fill everything. And Commencement Dimensional Ripper, since you're usually given more time against this deck, you're not too worried about just getting absolutely run over. There is some significant setup time. Then you might as well keep those cards to actually, because that's actually your win condition.
Yeah, and also there is the side effect of trying to mulligan and you do end up picking up minions from your deck. The mulligan of this deck is probably the most important part, because once you mulligan, the game plan is pretty clear. You just kind of play whatever removal spells you can and then just like stall out. There's a couple of like, important ways you can prep things and set up your turns. The mulligan is everything. Might even be worthy of Gia's Mull It Over.
Ooh. I feel like she's probably getting sick of every region calling her out to do Mull It Over series.
I mean, it's not really I guess calling it out does make me feel like we're saying like, oh, Gia, we're gonna throw down and challenge you to do this. But it's just more like it's more of an interesting thing that I feel like no different than we're like asking Lorinda to send us some stats on certain trends or archetypes.
Oh no!
Either way, though,
when it's Lorinda, we are specifically calling him out.
Yeah. Okay. Some of us definitely. Ones who love to bully UK casters in particular.
Yep.
Love to call it out.
Yep.
This Restless Mummy, by the way, a very nice pickup from the Athletic Studies. Really good to control the state of the board. Muzzy kind of just like slowly accruing his resources, trying to discount that Mana Giant. Finds Big Ol' Whelp, which is important. As we've identified with this Mage deck several times, card draw seems to be really important for the Mage deck because they have so many cheap spells that a lot of times you could be playing cheap spells and then run out of resources and then be just playing whatever your top deck.
Yeah. Whew. Language Hacker has so much time. This is unbelievable. Did Muzzy forget to put Sorcerer Apprentice in his deck?
It really
joke,
feels
obviously.
like that at this point,
I
right?
did, but it feels like it, yeah.
Sorcerer's Apprentice, so important to really make the deck engine go. But he finds Jandice. Maybe Jandice makes some magic happen. I've yet to see a Jandice that's like kind of the Giga Nuts. It just seems like a well-statted card at the moment that's synergizes with things like Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah. I've seen like
oh wait, never mind. That's Wormweaver, not.
Oh yeah, it's Muzzy's playing the Wormweaver, yeah. So that one's a little bit better. I talked about that one when Muzzy played in his group stage, but the Wormweaver I've loved because it's very similar to Jandice, but the minions are must kill. Like if you leave Mana Worms up against this deck, you're in some trouble.
Right.
It
It's
seems like just a more
comparable stats.
consistent drop. Yeah. Oh. Easiest evocation polymorph of Muzzy's life.
I mean, he can actually deal with it, though, in the form of the Mana Worms getting buffed. Like, Fireball here is pretty reasonable.
He could just unload all of his Rays of Frost. Probably want to find, some mixture between like the Fireball, the spells in hand. So if he goes 2 more Rays of Frost and then a Fireball, that would fill up all his mana, and he would deal 8 damage to it, and then he could trade over 1 Mana Worm and still push a little bit of damage.
Yeah, he's thinking about his discounts as well.
Works against me.
Conjurer's Calling to get more stats on the board, play around things like ramming speed. Definitely not playing around Brawl by extending more onto the board this way.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to unload the Fireball there.
Yeah. I think I'm just afraid of leaving minions on the board.
Yeah, I'm also afraid of not getting full value from... I guess the Conjurer's Calling was him picking up value. because I believe the counter's calling was from the evocation because he doesn't play it.
Yeah.
So
But,
I
TJ.
see it. He could have pushed through damage though, and now he's kind of wide on the board. So that's kind of where my head's at, similar to yours.
Yeah, I would say that Muzzy might actually be baiting the brawl because he has Mana Giants ready to go. So
Yeah,
he
that's
could
also a possibility.
brawl and then Mana Giant Conjure's calling. I like that.
But Language Hacker's not going to overreact here. He's got a 12-12 taunt in the way. The one thing about leaving the Deathwing Mad Aspect up is that it disincentivizes Language Hacker from brawling because he doesn't want to lose a 12-12 with taunt.
All in due time.
All right. Well, how much do you want to extend onto this board now? We know this board is you can deal with, or maybe not deal with entirely because that's still a lot of stats. Maybe stall is a better word for it.
Yeah.
All right. So the mirror entity, it's a secret that also messes with Language Hacker in a multitude of ways. Makes him a little bit more wary about counterspell. Wow, those are some awful 8-drops. He actually barely increased his stat line by one point. He went from 16 stats to 17 stats.
Well, again, he's freezing Language Hacker's minions to try and make it so it doesn't want to brawl, but he's also making his own minions smaller, so Language Hacker really doesn't want to brawl. But Muzzy really wants him to brawl because he wants to get rid of these big minions and not have to extend even further onto the board. This is brutal.
It's Gyrocopter's time to shine. Gyrocopter kills 2 minions with Coerce.
What now?
You would play Gyrocopter, trade to the 4/4 taunt.
It's 5
Coerce
mana,
the
though.
2 Morden, I think, and then kill the Muck Morpher.
He's 1 mana off from being able to do that, though. Restless Mummy. Yeah, Restless Mummy. He can do
You're
it.
right. You're right.
He doesn't know the secret.
Oh yeah, that's another thing to consider too. The mirror entity, right? Like if he ended up playing Gyrocopter and saving the Coerce, because you're right, now the mana, he would be giving him 4/5 Wind Fury.
Yeah. All right, let's see what's in this.
Okay, so a counter spell, a couple of secrets here.
Yep. Helm of Intellect, that's just picking up value to the hand. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Ray
I mean,
of
he's still got a
Frost.
long way to go. Language Hacker's at 38, but Devolving Missiles.
Yeah, could
That could
be
allow him to push
useful.
damage.
I feel like Devolving Missiles is more for like Rattle Lore. I'd be looking. I'm eyeing this counter spell. Liking the way it looks a lot right now.
Works
Yeah.
against me.
Going into turn 10? Absolutely.
Oh, jeez. This counter spell is particularly
Oh, he nailed
brutal
it.
against Language Hacker.
He nailed the Arcane Missiles! Keep around a 4/4.
Oh, no! Counter spell! Oh, round of applause.
Muzzy
Language
is-
Clapper giving it up for Muzzy here, and Muzzy gets a free turn. He essentially skipped his opponent's turn.
Yeah. And now that Pyroblast is becoming ever more present.
I think this is the beginning of the end here, TJ.
Yep. Well, Wanty could win a brawl, and, then Language Hacker might have some time, but he also needs to piece together a counteroffensive, or Mike's just going to keep beating him up.
True mastery takes dedication.
right, Brawl to try to reduce the amount of power on board. Language Hacker is now in salvage mode. Probably not worth. Oh, he's gonna go for the Vargot to Brawl again, trying to reduce the amount of power that's on the board here. And he wins it. Oh! He's out of cards too. I mean, he's got Cramp Session.
Language Hacker's still gonna win. No, he's still got a lot of cards left in his deck. It's not like he's completely out of resources. But he's gonna slowly get pushed out further and further out of this game. Mana Cyclone. Okay. All right. All right. Wanted power? Mana Cyclone?
Mana Cyclone.
What?
That's huge. Do you... I guess it's not worth Brain Freezing for that extra spell since you could just use Brain Freeze.
Evocation!
Evocation!
Oh my... Muzzy is destined to win this game.
Wait, what was the Ancient Mysteries for? I guess to free up hand space.
Free up hand space for Evocation, yeah. 1 mana, what else are you going to spend it on?
He just keeps not drawing his big minions. I mean, maybe that's what this deck's missing. Maybe Language Hacker lacks meaningful card draw, but like a lot of the games you have such a big hand because you have so many expensive cards that it's not really the case. Another Brawl. An Eyebrow Raise from Muzzy again.
It's only spells in hand, so he's hoping that he could just high roll win this Brawl.
I see. I was I was worried the Sorcerer Apprentice would win. I wanted to just kill it with ramming speed. For that very reason, because you had a board clear guarantee with ramming speed, right? You just traded in the...
Yeah, but maybe he thinks he needed ramming speed for something
Yeah.
else. I honestly
Either
don't know.
way, it's really ugly, and Muzzy has Deep Freeze now.
Long years I have studied.
And it
Primordial
does
studies.
feel... I mean, these aren't really super great impact cards right now.
Azure Explorer can find even more value.
Yes. I like anything that plays minions, but I also want to play Deep Freeze this turn, so I think maybe instead I'd be favoring cards like Mana Reservoir.
Yeah.
Also, Mana Reservoir has a really negative effect on things like ramming speed.
Hold that thought.
And now with Brawl having been used...
Watch Language Hacker pick up Dimensional Ripper and then think it's Counterspell again.
If it is, he has to play it 100%. There's no way. He can play
Yeah,
around it.
I feel like you had to play it the first time too. Can't play around randomly generated. Oh, it is! He thinks it's Counterspell.
Troublemaker. He's ready. He's emotionally ready for this.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
Troublemakers! All right, they need to clear
has
off
to-
some damage or he's dead to Pyroblast.
Okay, so he sees the Dice Barrier.
Yeah,
He has to kill the Water Elemental now.
Water Elemental.
What? Oh.
Nope. And he's dead. That's it.
What a game. What a series. What a weekend. Muzzy is going to take home the first week of Swiss with a championship under his belt. And with a nice little dab in commemoration as well. GG's. And, Muzzy comes in as one of the players that historically has been one of America's best performers. And
Yep.
it's been a couple seasons, and it feels like Muzzy is on the cusp of being able to have that performance recaptured. And it feels like he's off to a great start again, and that should put him very much in a commanding position to make Division A for Phase 2 of the competition.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough for him to not make Division A with a win, and that's good. And he was, very reflective last season when he made it to Division B. He was very also positive about it. Some players were super doom and gloom about being placed in Division B, but he was like, I just got to prove myself, and he did towards the end of the season. avoided that relegation, and now he's put himself in a good position to be the front runner for seeding in Division A, which is cool to see. Love me some Muzz. The last game was a little wacky, but I love watching Muzzy pop off and everything. He's just so fun to watch. And Language Hacker, poor Language Hacker, there at the end, but Big Warrior not coming through for him when it mattered most.
Yeah, it's fun because one thing that we didn't really talk about was Muzzy and Language Hacker are two of the more expressive players in the Americas these days, and that's great to see because I really feel like Muzzy has hit his stride in recent years where, in the very beginning he was kind of stoic about everything, any kind of random outcome, good or bad, he just kind of was trying to maintain focus, but these days it just seems like he's kind of being loose and a lot more playful, which we all know Muzzy, if you get to know him personally on his stream or hanging out with him, he's very much just kind of being sarcastic and memeing all the time. So it's great to see that personality start to shine a little bit through when you watch him on camera. But yeah, either way, that brings us to the end of our first week, TJ. It's been quite a long ride. We had a record long GM broadcast at over 21 hours, followed by a 19.5, 20-hour day the following day, into a very chaotic finals on for all the region. Any final thoughts you want to say before we wrap things up here?
No, it's been well, I guess yes. It's been a fun week. We've got to see the new expansion in action. We have got to see a lot of sloppy play, which honestly is fun because players are still getting used to these decks. They've had less than a week, and who knows how late in the process they settled on what decks they were going to bring. And next week they kind of have to restart because we're at last hero standing, completely different format. So you have to take those decks that you've spent a little over a week learning and mold them into a new format and warp your brain even more to kind of get it going there. So I'm just excited for next week. Excited to see what players come up with and see if anything crazy and new is going to be in store for us.
Yep, that's right. So with that, if you missed any part of this broadcast, you can always check us out at youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports right here, where you can see all the VODs. And if you want to check out deck lists and standings and programs and rules and everything else related to the Masters Tour and Grandmasters program, go to playhearthstone.com/esports. That's it from us. We'll be back again this Friday, starting with Asia Pacific on the same time and same place. From Frodan, TJ, and everyone else part of the production, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next time for more Hearthstone action.